She's out. No, we are bringing on our godmother to take over round 2 and round 3. So I'm going to leave it to Tanisha to take over. I think she's hidden the horse's head, so you may not see it in screen right now.
Hi, thanks Vikas. I'm back. Hello, Mr. Anand. I'm going to be very nice to you, particularly because we have a lot of IP work pending for the program called Unsuited. So, I'm going to be very kind because IDEX and Grey Matter are going to come to you for all the work we need to do around copyright and trademark. Okay, so.
Mind if I have a sip?
Please do. More than a sip. So our next segment, take a breather, let me talk. Our next segment is called the demonstration round, okay? What we need to do in this round is encourage you to show us your creative side, and which we can very clearly see there is no dearth of when it comes to you. So we're very excited to see what you have to show us today. I think you're multifaceted, right? So you have more than just one thing to demonstrate today, is that right? Hi, can you see me and hear me, Mr. Anand? Akash, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Visible?
I think Pravin's frozen a bit.
Okay. I think we lost him there. We will just, please bear with us. Mr. Anand will be back shortly. He's gone off to prepare for the demonstration round. His feed has paused. That's correct. Rahul tells us that his feed has paused. Yes, it has. Please bear with us. He's going to be back shortly. Until then, let's just wait momentarily, please. Apologies.
Tanisha?
Yes,
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think you scared him when you asked him to represent us. When you're like, we're looking for him to be our IP lawyer.
Represented far more, complex cases and more complex people than us. So I don't think that's really the worry. I think he's gone to get his hands dirty with all that he wants to demonstrate today, because he just has so much skill to show off that he's unsure of what to pick. So I think that's what he's gone off to.
Or he's thinking he's got a bunch of more quacks he's going to have to work with.
That too. So I think we're just going to have to wait momentarily to just check in. Maybe he's trying to dial back in.
Yeah. So Akash is doing that. So Akash is just chasing him up.
It's actually a great time to go get your tea, coffee, or like a bio break, because usually this show goes on straight up for an hour and a half. So this kind of a break is sometimes almost useful, right?
So for the audience, what we have next, while Pravin is joining back, we have our godmother Tanisha, who's going to make sure Pravin does a demo for you of one of his many skills, and then she's going to be on to the interrogation, which is meant to be a kind of like, given we're working with a legal fraternity, isn't often rapid fire. We end up talking a lot on that bit. But it's great questions that she's going to be kind of delving much more into his life and asking quite pertinent questions. So that's the super fun bit you want to stay around for.
So in fact, I suggest we go ahead and demonstrate what Mr. Anand has to demonstrate in the time that he's trying to join in. Why don't we go ahead and, tell everybody to take a look at what Hia has to share. Hia, why don't you go ahead and share this beautiful poem that Mr. Anand has written. Let's take a look at that, and maybe when he joins us back, he can tell us more about it. I think that should be good, right? Here, you can go ahead and share your screen, please.
Let me kiss their feet. Hey, we all knew Newton. He told us why the apple doesn't fall to the sky, gravity. And Einstein, why little study is so long and lots of play so short. relativity. Don't forget the inventors. The ancients invented fire and the wheel and bricks to build our homes. We need to eat. Who made the plow? And they made tables and chairs and plates. We need to dress and groom. Whence came the soap, the brush and the comb? We needed time. Peter Henley invented the watch. We needed to study and research. Janssen gave us the microscope and the telescope, not Galileo, but Lippershey. We need to travel from the wheel to the drone, cars, ships and planes. Don't forget the train. But first, let me wear my shoes. I'm ill now. Who made me healthy again? Fleming gave penicillin. Who gave us light like the sun? Thomas Edison. My computer and the internet and the tools for things to get. Hammers, drills, levers and the saw. From any idea you could draw. But I have a richer need. My music and films and books to read. Oh God, these creators I want to meet. Bless them. Let me kiss their feet. Let me kiss their feet.
Wow, that was beautiful. So, Mr. Anand, you're back. Thank you for joining us. Sorry about that minor technical glitch we had, but welcome back. You are on mute, Mr. Anand, so you'll have to unmute yourself, please. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you now.
Good. Did we lose much time?
No, we didn't actually, because we used the time very well and efficiently, like all lawyers do, to play that beautiful poem and that wonderful video that you've come up with. So we'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about that now.
Well, I mean, it speaks for itself. There was a book which I was doing for my grandson on inventors. And of course, he's just 1 year old. Okay. So there's no question of him seeing that or understanding it for a long, long time. Sure. But when I was writing that book, I started to research a bit and found some very interesting facts about inventors. I mean, despite being interested in the field for such a long time, there's so little that one actually knew about the real stories behind inventions. And so that's what led me to kind of put something in a very simplistic way. And this is a very rudimentary kind of thing that I got inspired to make on the World Intellectual Property Day. But the field of inventors and writing about them and is so vast that we could actually have an inventors museum and take our school children and others and families with their children to go and get inspired by inventors. I mean, it's so surprising that when you look around you, right, from an aircraft to a ship to a cycle to a computer, none of this has been invented in India. And And it's so surprising that a lot of these inventions have been made by Indians overseas. So we have the skills, but we do not have the right environment right now to either appreciate or to convert into a protectable invention. And I think that's what inspired me to write that poem.
That poem is just beautiful, and the artwork accompanying it completely does justice. And I think the way you've narrated the poem is also it's really impactful. So I'm glad that you shared this with us, and I'm sure our audience is very, very thrilled to have watched something like this, because it truly tells us that you're not just an IP lawyer, you yourself are quite the innovator.
Truly tells you that I'm an amateur.
Not really. It's like you said, it's rudimentary, it's basic, but yet it literally it's got capacity to just light up your mind, right? And that's what you're, I think, trying to do at some level, even with your child.
I think it's one important message is that there are people who've got so much more talent. I mean, my talent is this much, but there are people with such great skills and talents. They should use that skill and talent to try and spread this message that be creative, be innovative, and you'll be able to take this country to a completely new high.
Correct. And do it in the country. Don't
do it in the
problem of brain drain, I think, is something that we wrestle with very often as a country, right?
Correct.
I think now with the threat of the visas being cancelled in the US, and the potential that a lot of people may actually come back, I was secretly very excited, because I'm like, good, the best of our brains will probably come back to us, and we stand to benefit with that. Provided, of course, we know how to treat them well and protect their creations, like you rightly said earlier in your interview.
True. Super.
And what else do you have for us? Because I refuse to believe that your creativity is limited to a poem and a video. So what else are you going to do for us today?
Well, I'm not going to cook a meal for you, surely, although I'm extremely fond of food, but I never learned how to cook.
Okay.
And I've been learning some paintings, because I used to do art when I was in school, and I was fairly good at that school level. Mm-hmm. And but that never remained in touch till I got a professor to try and help. Mm-hmm. And he would come on Sundays to teach. And I started making some paintings. But like I said, very amateurish and not so great. Somehow that professor thought that it could develop into something nicer. But I believe at the moment, I can't do much, because I've suddenly run from one floor to another to get the internet connection, right? I have a piece of paper here.
Okay.
I have a piece of paper, and at times I would just kind of come out with these literally these 1 minute paintings, mm-hmm. Or just a kind of a sketch in just less than a minute.
Okay.
The idea was to kind of capture okay, that's done. So, so I mean, it just anything, a horse, a mountain, a seaside, those paintings and if you start to do it, give a little more time. Mm-hmm. With acrylics, you do a fast acrylic, and you can finish a painting in one session, as opposed to oils. And so I'd like to do those fast paintings. There's a term in which I'm forgetting today for these super fast paintings.
Okay.
And I just enjoy that very much. And a lot of our time in court, when we used to just wait for the matter to come up, go in doing this. In fact, I started to create slips called court art. And so every day there was a slip which would have some painting, and it would be numbered and put away. And I don't know where that's lost now, but that was quite a way of listening to what the previous matter was what proceedings were going on, and at the same time, those doodles became some form of a court art.
Correct. And it's also therapeutic, isn't it? Like to just, it actually, I find that it enhances my thinking and my listening ability when I'm simultaneously just fiddling with a pen or a pencil on paper.
So, in our firm, we had a book art competition.
Okay.
And so we got 12 well-known painters to take legal books like the CPC, an old discarded CPC, and convert it into art. So I remember somebody from Mumbai, I forget the name now, folded pages and made it into a butterfly.
How nice.
And so the pages of the two hard covers are still intact, but the inner pages have been converted into a butterfly. And another person, a Japanese, made cutouts. And when you would go from one page to another, you would enter a house and you would go from room to room. It was very interesting. And those are exhibited in our firm.
So this is all still sitting at the firm, in that big library.
There are 12 of them. 12 of them, which were commissioned. That's book art. So it's a collection of book art.
How nice. So there is somebody here called Naval Anand, and he tells us that the name of the painting that you were looking for, done in one session, is called Alla Prima. Is that the word you were looking for?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Right. Thank you, Naval. We've made a note of that. Okay, super. So you can clearly sketch or paint.
Naval Anand happens to be my father.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's the great man. He's the great man who gave me the opportunity to argue a matter on day one of being a lawyer.
Oh, wow. So this is your father watching. This is him writing in, is it?
I'm sure it must be him.
Oh, good evening.
I've never known a second Naval Anand, and there cannot be a second Naval Anand.
Okay, then
he's the best father that you can ever have.
How sweet. And Father's Day just went by, so it's great that you make that reference. Good evening, Mr. Anand Senior.
He's 92. So he's 92 years of age. Wow. And he's an inspiration to a lot of IP professionals in this country. And the greatest thing about him, even when there were opportunities when I was fighting against somebody and there was some bad blood or whatever, my father would treat my opponents and people, the ones who were even who had been a little harsh, he would treat them with so much of love and compassion and bless them, and that he's somebody who has to be met. You can't imagine what a great soul he is. Yeah.
Maybe we should catch up with him in our next season. Then we'll probably invite him and your sons, and we'll probably
you must invite the family.
Yes,
and I have a beautiful grandson.
Wonderful. So he can join in and say hello probably as well. Super. Absolutely. Thank you for talking about your father. Thank you, Mr. Anand, for writing in and also watching. We really, really appreciate it. Moving on to our third segment, Mr. Pravin Anand, called the interrogation. I'd really recommend that you drink some water, coffee or tea, take a sip or two.
Why, you're going to bash me up?
Bash you up? because then that IP work we spoke of may not go well. So I'm not doing that, but I'm going to ask you to be really, really quick to respond as briefly as you can. And of course, please bring your creativity like you always do. So that's going to be the request.
Sure.
So are you ready, Mr. Anand, for the interrogation?
Yeah.
Okay, super. So your first question then, is there a connection between creativity and spirituality in your view?
Oh, I had a conference which I conducted once where Sri Ravi Shankar spoke with knowledge workers, journalists, scientists, etc. We tried to explore this connection. And certainly there is a connection. What the elements of that connection are won't come in this much of limited time.
Correct.
It's very vast, but it's beautiful. That conference went off fantastically well.
And is there somewhere we can view that, or what happened there?
We've got a videotape on that. I don't know whether anybody has a facility for a videotape these days, but if I can get out something, I will certainly send it to you.
Please do. Or even like a short write-up on just what happened in that session would be great too. I think a lot of creators would want to know. So that'll be great. Thanks. So moving on to your next question. How many people at the firm right now, partners and lawyers, roughly?
About 130.
130. What we understand is that about 100 firms or 100 plus firms have mushroomed from the lawyers that have at some point been at Anand and Anand or trained with Pravin Anand, right? How
More
does that
than 125.
125, is it? Wow. How does that make you feel?
I think it gives me a lot of competition because each one of them is better than the next. They're really, really good.
I'm sure.
That's a lot of competition, but it makes me feel good because one of the positives that came out of that was that the world of IP became so rich and it opened up many, many doors. And
Correct.
The world started to look at India as a good IP destination.
Correct.
That's what it did. And the good thing is that all these firms, they're very ethical and they believe in doing high quality ethical work, which speaks volumes for them and how they've conducted themselves. And I think they've contributed hugely to this infrastructure of IP which we've developed.
That is fantastic. It is the true hallmark of a mentor when you respond like this. So thank you, and thank you for making IP law so much more accessible in the country. Moving on to your next question, we know you love your coffee latte, and we know that you love reading because no matter how many books you get, I feel like you're always going to be unhappy because you've not managed to read enough, right? So if I were to ask you to choose between your Costa latte coffee, a cup of that, a hot brewing cup of that, and a really great read, maybe non-IP, maybe like an autobiography or something, what would you pick?
Both go together. While you read, you sip your coffee.
Perfect. Okay. And now with the monsoons coming up, that's like the ideal combination, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. Okay. Your next question then, Mr. Anand, what are your 3 strengths?
Strengths, I would say one of the most important strengths is the focus, which I earlier spoke about to Vikas. I would also say that I have managed to bring people together. I feel that's important because I try to recognize the good in each one. I would say that my ability, as I also mentioned earlier, to neutralize negatives and bias, right, and to think positive about things. I think most important of all is I don't dislike anything, pretty much. Except, of course, Parval. Parval in food.
Oh, Parval made it to the hate list.
But otherwise, there's the word like hate. In fact, I actually tried to tell my children when they were growing up not to use the word hate in the family.
Okay.
We hate the word hate. And you don't even say that. You say you don't use the word hate.
Fair. It is a very strong word. So you're right there. That's a good takeaway. Thank you. So my next question then, what is the best practical joke that you have ever played on someone or someone has played on you? Either way.
Well, in St. Stephen's College, you have a PG Wodehouse week.
Okay.
And in that, Winterfest or something. And you have a PG Wodehouse contest, okay, where practical jokes can be performed by students. So what I did was I got Professor Bhargav and Janki Amma of Professor Bhargav's of the physics department and Janki Amma of Miranda House.
Okay.
Wedding cards circulated to 40, 50 professors all over Delhi University. And on one Sunday at the chapel of St. Stephen's College, dozens of people landed up with flowers and gifts and in their best suits. And Nurul Hasan, the then education minister, called up Professor Rajpal and started congratulating him. And Professor Rajpal was steaming and he wanted to throw out the student who'd performed this practical joke. But Professor Dwivedi, who'd approved it, shielded, but I got the first prize. That was the best.
Oh my God. Wow, that is really brave of you.
They were very naughty.
I'm curious, did the professors actually then take a cue and fall in love and get married? The lady ran the house and your professor? No. Okay, fair. Okay, that's a good one. Thank you. The next question then, what do you do to make the world a better place?
I think to protect creative people
Correct.
has been, if you call it a one-line motto,
Sure.
that's a very important thing. I believe that I should try and spread the message.
Super. Okay. My next question then, what profession do you think doesn't get enough respect or credit in India?
I think at the present moment, probably doctors and health workers.
Very
in
well.
COVID times. But otherwise, generally in good times, sweepers, people who clean toilets. I used to ask myself often that Mahatma Gandhi would sweep his, kind of clean his own toilets.
Right.
Would I be able to do it? And I've tried my hand at it. It's difficult. And I must confess. And so the people who do that, at one point of time, I thought like a foolish guy, they should be the richest people in society because they're doing things that you can't do, So I just think that they deserve a much better deal.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. In fact, I'm going to add on to that if you don't mind. The people who pick up our garbage, we often call them the kachrawalas, right? And my friend Neha, who's also here and watching, she reminded me gently once that we are the ones who are making the kachra. So we are the kachrawalas. They are actually cleaning. So they're the cleaners. Hum kachra banate, wo uthate. So I felt like that was really, really powerful and it really stayed with me.
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay, super. So your next question then, if you could snap your finger in an instant and make the world a better place, what would you snap your finger and do?
Obviously, take away COVID.
Take away COVID.
At the moment.
Thank you. That will be wonderful. True. Okay. Your next question then, what energizes you about IP law? In one sentence, please.
Energizes. Mm-hmm. I went to a conference where prizes were being given to creators of IPRS, Collecting Society. And the level of the room was a foot higher than normal because the creative talents in that room had created so much of energy that they were actually floating. And I could feel that. And I think that creativity of creative people, that energy of creative people, that rubs off on you. And it's really, really important when you are within their company, you see that creativity flying around. It is a different experience altogether.
I'm sure it is. Okay, super. Your next question then, Mr. Anand, how do you interact with somebody who disagrees with you, where there's conflict? How do you deal with that?
Well, to start with a smile.
You learned that from your father?
Then, yes. My father is known to have, you have talk of a green finger. He's got a settlement finger. He can settle any dispute. There was a dispute in the Gurudwara in our colony, and he got that settled. So those are kind of most complex disputes he can get resolved.
Okay.
He's a champion at that. And I think, therefore, conflicts, you got to listen. You got to hear. You got to use dialogue. You got to try and go with the flow of your opponent. And try then to lead him to a corner where he self-realizes the depth of his argument.
Fair. Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
I don't believe in confrontation of the kind that would lead to friction. Okay. It's important to be transparent, to voice your opinions, but you must know where to draw the line, where it starts to turn sour. You have to stop there. That's very important. That control is very important.
Very well said. Thank you. Okay, your next question then. If everyone was mentally incapable of lying, nobody can lie. How do you think that would change the world of intellectual property law?
Wow, we'd win all the cases.
because you as a firm represent
only right owners.
Only right owners. Correct. I knew this. Okay.
I mean, we are involved in defendants' actions once in a while, but those are only cases which involve an industry issue or collectively involve a huge group, or there's an aberration in the law that needs to be corrected. Something along those lines.
Understood. Okay. Your next question then. Your favorite personal invention that mankind has enjoyed thus far, in your view?
100% the internet.
The internet.
Yeah. Without, I mean, today you had the physical reality and you had a world of dreams, which is also some sort of a reality.
Correct.
Because it actually happens. A dream actually happens. And then you have a new virtual world, the internet world, which is a different world. And see, today we are surviving on that.
We're able to do this.
Yeah.
We're able to have this conversation with the internet. You're right. Okay.
I remember when I was a kid growing up, we had Sinclair ZX Spectrum computers and then Commodore 64 computers. So when I got into computing, it was at that low level. And from that, we suddenly saw PCs come and then networking come and then see how it grew to the internet. And so all this digital climb is a great story.
It is, and not just for somebody like you personally, but also professionally, right? Because at this point, I'm sure you're attending a lot of virtual court.
Yes, absolutely. Every day. Yeah.
Okay, super. Now moving on, if you could give your parents one piece of advice about you before you were born, what would you say to them?
Do not feed this baby. He will grow. He will grow and you won't be able to control it.
Okay, which brings me to my next question. What is your favorite cuisine? We know you're a foodie. What is your favorite cuisine?
Chinese, without a doubt. Yes. Okay. Oh, I just love Chinese. I've had crazy stories on Chinese food.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. So that's going to lead me to my next question. What is the extent you can go to enjoy good food? Please share like a...
See, there's no, when you talk of passion, there's nothing like extent.
Okay.
Passion takes you sky high. So being to a country for 3 hours, from one country to another country, from Geneva to France, to have pigeon and orange sauce, and at a restaurant. So a friend of mine who was a diplomat there, he took me, and we both got caught because I didn't have a visa. And when the person heard that we were going to such and such restaurant, which was a famous one,
right.
He said, all right, 3 hours. I give you 3 hours to come back. So he just excused us. He was a food lover. So a foodie, he appreciated that restaurant. So, and once I traveled 300 kilometers in one day to eat at the Old Dover's Inn in the US. Of course, somebody was taking me there, one of our clients. But the point is, these food excursions. They're only, I guess, it's only a tip of the iceberg. Like this, whenever we would go to the US, we'd stop one day in London to be able to go to Chinatown for a good Chinese meal.
Wow. Okay, so clearly a lot of passion, not just for the IP law, but also for food, as you have clearly depicted. Right? Okay. Now, going back to your former love, IP, what are, according to you, some of the most common IP, IP law flouting that we do without even realizing that we do it? Like, if you could give us the top 3, maybe. That we, when I say we, I mean just, the public at large.
I think not so much photocopying now, but more downloading, streaming, music, films, etc. Essentially that. I remember when my kids were growing up, my son had some CDs and VCDs, etc., with some films, and I got them to destroy them, and they happily did that. And after that, my kids have not used pirated stuff, not one day. Because my logic was that if we are getting people arrested for copyright violation, then I can't be doing it at my home.
Correct.
And that's very important.
Fair, fair. Okay. Your next question then. If you could go back in time and uninvent something, what would you erase from history completely?
Guns, I think.
Guns? Yeah, that's a good one. Okay. Your next question then. If you were tasked with the job of making school more fun, but it still has to be as effective as a teaching tool, right, to students, what would you introduce? One thing that you would introduce?
I take a lot of people to schools to give them practical side of things. For example, or I take the school children to see how a film is being made, or I take them to a studio to see, or to a lab, how materials are tested, how take them to a stock exchange to see how a stock exchange works. So to expose them to the practical side of things. When I was kind of doing law, I realized that we didn't have those kind of opportunities to go work in a factory, to go work in a lab, to go work in, at a film set, to be able to see the practical side, because that gives you a totally different insight. And that's why a lot of the government officers who spent their time in the villages and the panchayats, they have a deep understanding of how the society works, because they've seen it at that level.
Ground level. Correct.
For example, my son asked me the other day that what exactly is the difference between a village and a town, and it's defined. It's got to do with the population, and these are all objectively defined things which you learn through a practical exposure. That practical exposure is very important in schools.
Understood. Okay, that's a good one. The next question then. You've said that the power of observation is very important. Can you tell us where you learned this and why you think it's so important?
Oh, Father Curry in school, he came to the class with lots of candles on day one. Okay. And he gave every boy a candle. And then he came and lit them and said, fix them on the table. And once they were lit, he says, now write what you observe. And people had to write for half an hour, 45 minutes, whatever the whole remaining class time, what they observed. So people wrote things like melting wax and blue flame, yellow flame, how it trickles down the side of the candle. You kept writing. And people would stop with half a page. He'd say, no, keep going on and on. And so he taught you how to observe a dot, and in the dot, the difference in shade between the black and the darker areas. So the idea was to observe deeper and deeper. That was very, very important at least for a science student, but I believe for everybody in life, to observe.
That's a great learning actually from college. Okay, my next question then, can you give us 3 book recommendations around invention and IP that you think everybody will enjoy?
Invention and IP. I think if you take the field of IP, then my favorites used to be a book called McCarthy, because I liked McCarthy first. Then I asked, when I was given a certain scholarship, to go to the US and meet anybody I wanted. I wanted to meet Professor McCarthy, met him, and I loved that book on trademarks. Okay. And Chisholm on patents, and Nimmer on copyrights, and Laddie Prescott and Vittoria on copyrights. This is the field. But apart from the field, there's a learning in every area. There's an IP learning. For example, Noam Chomsky's and Stephen Pinker's books on linguistics, they have a lot of IP content, surprisingly. Or even a thing like Algorithms to Live By, books like that, or Malcolm Gladwell's books, Tipping Point and so on. They have a lot of learning because they've got examples of how business entrepreneurs are doing their business and how sometimes they miscalculate and their data is misused and how data is protected. And so all those things are really linked up to IP. And I think my reading would therefore go all the way to that. Having said that, one book I'd like to mention, or two, which I really enjoyed reading in my life was The Celestine Prophecy and The Alchemist. The Alchemist, I mean, Paulo Coelho, he was, of course, he is a great author, but The Celestine Prophecy was a book which I recommend to almost everybody.
Super. That's a lot of reading for everybody to do. So thank you for sharing those. I'm going to now ask you one more question, the last one, almost the last one. If you could make one thing that is currently legal, you have to move it to the illegal space, and one thing that's illegal but has to be legalized, specific to the IP realm, what would you swap?
IP realm I can't think of, but I can tell you the killing of animals in some countries where they actually you pay and you can kill a lion and get a video shot and feel proud about it. I mean, that is the most cruel thing on earth, and that should be made illegal. As far as something which is illegal to be made legal, there's a food that I thoroughly enjoy eating. I won't name the food, but I would love to eat it in my own country.
Okay.
And you should understand.
Okay, that's a good one. So my last question then for you, and this one has ulterior motive. We would like to ask you, now that you've been through this chat show today called Unsuited, episode 5, who do you recommend as a guest for the show? Like, who do you think would do justice to a format like this? Or who would you like to see on the show, really?
I'd love to see my favorite judge, Rohinton Nariman, Justice Nariman, if it's possible. Or if it's meant for law firm heads, then somebody like Lakshmi Kumaran.
Okay.
Yes.
We've made a note of those, and we are going to probably reach out to them with your reference. So thank you. So there, I'm just going to quickly check if there are any questions for you. Akash, Vikas, do we want to take any questions that we would like for Sir to answer from the audience?
Yeah, I think you could answer a couple. I think that's a good way to end the program.
So someone's asking, how old is your firm and how long have you been practicing?
The firm is about 23. So that makes it 97 years old, 97.
Wow.
In August, on the 15th of August, we'll turn 97. We were founded on the 15th of August, much before India became independent. That date was the 1923 date.
Okay.
I've been practicing since the 3rd of August, 1979. 41 years.
Wow. Okay. Wow, that's a lot of time spent doing what you love, and I think that's just luck. So that's great. Okay, someone's asking, how was your academic life? Were you a good student or were you average?
So up to class 5, I used to come 43rd out of 45 students, right at the bottom. And then it rose. Suddenly, when the change came, I came 4th in class. And after that, it was in the top 3 or 4.
Okay.
And in college, we were competing for the university ranking. And it was 1, 2, or 3. But there was a girl in Miranda House who we could never defeat. She would always come first.
Okay. Okay. There's another question for you. Can you suggest some tips for being a successful lawyer?
Be straightforward to the court. Don't fool the court, because your credibility is more important than your intelligence, your hard work, your preparation, the strength of your case, your facts. The most important is your credibility. You don't have credibility, you have nothing. Don't fool the court. Be straightforward and clear and clean to the court and to your opponent. Be fair to your opponent. Those values. Those values are the most important. So if you think that you can kind of conceal this fact or keep this away, it'll leak out. And so not only is it a bad practice, but it'll destroy you and your credibility.
Okay. The next question then, when you meet an inventor or a creator, they're all over the place in terms of patents on that invention. What do you do to structure those discussions towards the real patenting and specifics around it?
So you have to play a friend to the inventor or the creator. You start to criticize him, he'll run away because he needs a friend. So at that time, you have to, even if he's got something which is crazy, you have to understand, you have to give him time. You have to make him discover that it's crazy himself through that dialogue. And perhaps try to find out what, if he's made something, how could you describe it or portray it in a patent claim which would make it protectable. So very often patent attorneys themselves are inventors. Why? Because they are the ones who chisel out from the raw material the real true invention.
Correct. Okay.